We're about a week removed from the start of free agency, and it's kind of that dead point in the offseason now where there really isn't a whole lot going on. Basically, all of the big name free agents have signed. There's still a couple notable names available, Thomas Tatar being the best of the bunch, but for the most part, free agency is over. Well, the exciting part of it is definitely over. So with that all being said, it is time to go over which signings, in my opinion, are the best and the worst from free agency so far. We have 10 total signings to talk about in this video, 5 of which I think are some of the best and 5 of which I think are some of the worst. And as always, these are just my opinions. If you disagree, feel free to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Also, let me know if there are any signings that I do not talk about in this video that you think are going to turn out to be really good or really bad. Starting things off on a good note with one of the best signings, David Savard signing a 4-year, $14 million contract with the Montreal Canadiens, an annual average of $3.5 million. This signing just makes all the sense in the world. It checks all the boxes. First off, it's a perfect fit with Shea Weber being out indefinitely, and we know at the very least he's going to be out for the entirety of this upcoming season. That left a pretty big hole on Montreal's right side behind Jeff Petrie. Now, obviously, David Savard isn't going to come in and be Shea Weber. That would be unfair to ask of him, but he's going to be a serviceable replacement. Savard is a player who has always been very steady defensively. He's capable of playing big, tough minutes against the opposing team's top players. Even with the loss of Shea Weber, after signing David Savard, Montreal's right side is in pretty decent shape with Jeff Petrie likely slotting in on the top pairing. Then you have David Savard and also Alexander Romanov. So the fit is obviously great, and in terms of the contract itself, I think $3.5 million a season for David Savard is more than fair. I actually think that's really good value, especially when you compare it to some of the other contracts defensemen were signed to over the past couple of weeks, which is actually the perfect segue into one of the worst signings from free agency so far, and that is Tucker Poolman signing a 4-year, $10 million contract with the Vancouver Canucks, an annual cap hit of $2.5 million. This signing to me was definitely the biggest head scratcher of all of free agency. For what Tucker Poolman is, $2.5 million a season is too much. I don't think it would even be that big of a deal if this was just a 1-year contract, because if it doesn't work out, then it's off the books after 1 season, but the 4-year term is really what gets me here. I just don't see the appeal. You look at Tucker Poolman's stats, he doesn't put up points. He had 1 assist in 39 games this past season, and obviously when it comes to defensemen, points are certainly not everything, so you look at that and you think, well, he must be a pretty damn good defensive defenseman. That's actually not the case. He's had pretty bad defensive analytics in each of the past 2 seasons. He's not extremely physical. He was 8th on the Jets in hits this past season. I just really don't see the appeal here, aside from the fact that he shoots right, and right shot defensemen are a very hot commodity. It's just crazy to me that, you know, a couple days after getting rid of the Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, and Antoine Roussel contracts, Jim Benning signs Tucker Poolman to this contract. I feel like this is going to age just as poorly as the Jay Beagle and the Antoine Roussel contracts. It's an overpayment with too much term for a depth player, a player who is very replaceable. Getting back to one of the best signings, Phillip Danault signing a 6-year, $33 million contract with the Los Angeles Kings, an annual cap hit of $5.5 million. Of all the bigger contracts that have been signed in free agency thus far, I feel like Danault's contract has the potential to age the best. Based off of Danault's playstyle, his age, and the term of the contract, I really just can't see a scenario where he falls off of a cliff at some point throughout this contract and it's a burden on the Los Angeles Kings. Danault is one of the very best defensive centermen in the entire league. That was very evident in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where he didn't provide much offense whatsoever, but he was still extremely valuable to Montreal because of what he brought to the table defensively. And when it comes to defensive forwards, their games usually age pretty well because they don't rely on explosive offensive ability or high-end speed, stuff that kind of tails off with age. When it comes to players like Danault, a lot of what they rely on to be successful is their hockey IQ, their brain, putting themselves in the right positions defensively, and that stuff just doesn't disappear with age. That's going to be around forever, and it's not even like Danault is going to be all that old when this contract is over. He's going to be, what, like 34 years old, so it's not like it takes him till he's like 37 or 38. Overall, I just see this contract aging very well. I think $5.5 million a season for Phillip Danault is extremely reasonable. The Kings' center depth is honestly pretty scary. You get the 1-2 punch of Anze Kopitar and Phillip Danault, both players who are capable of shutting down the opposing team's top offensive threats and also chipping in a bit of offense here and there. Obviously, Anze Kopitar more so known for his offense than Phillip Danault. And then behind those two, you have young guys like Quinton Byfield and Alex Turcotte. The Kings are going to be pretty fun to watch. Moving back to one of the worst signings, this is actually the only goalie we're going to talk about in this video, and that is Freddy Anderson, who signed a 2-year, $9 million contract with the Carolina Hurricanes, carries an annual cap hit of $4.5 million. In my eyes, the New Jersey Devils Devils took major steps backwards this offseason, obviously lowballing Dougie Hamilton with their final offer, which led to him signing in New Jersey. That's a topic for a whole other video, but the goaltending situation especially, I really just don't understand the thought process there. It all started with them trading away Nedeljkovic, who was one of the best goalies in the league this past season, just because they didn't want to pay him, what, $3.5 million, and then electing to go with a guy like Freddy Anderson to be their starter for this upcoming season, and paying him more than they would have had to pay Alex Nedeljkovic to keep him around, and also paying him likely more than they would have had to pay Peter Mrazek to keep him around, and Mrazek was also very good for Carolina this past season like Nedeljkovic. This is a pretty big gamble for Carolina. Yes, Freddy Anderson has had very good seasons in the NHL with Toronto, Vezina caliber seasons, but the past couple, he's dealt with his fair share of injuries, and even when he was playing, he didn't look healthy, he didn't perform the greatest. For a team that is trying to get over the hump and solidify themselves as legit Stanley Cup contenders, I don't like how they handled their goaltending situation this offseason, and I really don't like how they handled their offseason in general, to be honest. This next signing is one that I haven't really seen talked about all that much, but I think it has the potential to be a sneaky good pickup, and that is Brock McGinn signing a 4-year, $11 million contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins, an annual cap hit of $2.75 million. When the Seattle Kraken selected Brandon Tanev from Pittsburgh in the expansion draft, the Penguins obviously lost a pretty big part of their bottom six, but I think they get a lot of that back here in Brock McGinn, and at a cheaper cap hit as well. Like Brandon Tanev, he's a relentless forechecker, he's a very tough player to play against. He's not a guy who's going to be among the league leaders in hits like Brandon Tanev usually is, but Brock McGinn is certainly not afraid to throw his weight around. He's a good penalty killer, has a decent defensive game, just overall a player who I think is going to fit in really well in Pittsburgh's bottom six, and he's also the type of player who you could plug into your team's top six if need be, barring an injury or if the team's just not playing well and you need to change things up. Brock McGinn was a big time goal scorer in junior, and he has also had a 15-goal season at the NHL level as well, so there is a little bit of offensive game there. Moving along now to another one of the worst signings, the Seattle Kraken signing centerman Alexander Wenberg to a 3-year, $13.5 million contract, an annual cap hit of $4.5 million. I was pretty critical about this signing in my free agency review video, and I got a lot of comments of people disagreeing with me, but I still stand by what I said. Yes, Wenberg had a career year goal scoring wise with the Florida Panthers, 17 goals in 56 games, but his shooting percentage was above 20. That is not going to happen again. I don't hate Wenberg as a player by any means. I think he's a decent middle six centerman, can be very useful on the power play, but I just can't get behind Seattle giving him this type of money across the next 3 years, especially when you consider the fact that he was just recently bought out of a contract similar to this one. I believe it was last offseason Columbus bought him out, and I think the cap hit of that contract they bought him out from was $4.8 million. So now in this new contract, he's only making, what, $300K less a season than he was making on the contract he was bought out from. Is it that big of a deal? No, especially when you consider the team that signed him. Seattle has a ton of cap space. They were pretty weak down the middle, but just from a pure value standpoint, this is one of the signings that I'm not sure of, so that's why it's in this video. This signing is a relatively small one, but one that I think is just excellent value for the team that signed it, and that is Nick Bonino being signed to a 2-year, $4.1 million contract by the San Jose Sharks. Carries an annual cap hit of $2.05 million for a team that really needed a third-line center to play behind Thomas Hertl and Logan Couture. The San Jose Sharks did really well. They got a guy who I think is going to do perfect in that third-line center role. They got him at a very fair price. Bonino has been a very good two-way middle six centerman basically for his entire career. He's responsible defensively, he can provide offense, he's had 5 seasons in his career scoring 15 or more goals. He's good in the face-off circle, he's a guy that you can definitely put out there, you know, on a second power play unit or something like that. Overall, he's just going to make the San Jose Sharks a better team. Now, I don't necessarily think that's the direction the team should be heading in. I think they should be looking more towards a rebuild, but if their goal is to get better and fill a big need in terms of a third line center, they definitely did that here. I really don't want to rag on the guy because I feel like he's not as bad as people make him out to be, but I'm still not a fan of this move, and that is the Edmonton Oilers signing Cody Ceci to a 4-year, $13 million contract, an annual cap hit of $3.25 million. He's coming off of a pretty good season in Pittsburgh. He put up good results for the Penguins, but I think that's because he played in a role that he can thrive in. He was playing under 19 minutes a night, as opposed to his 4 seasons prior to that, he had been playing 20 plus minutes a night. And I get the feeling, based off of the contract that Ken Holland gave to Cody Ceci, he's going to be playing in a role where he will likely be playing north of 20 minutes a night. And we've seen that that doesn't work. We've actually seen it twice, with Ottawa and with Toronto. Now, Cody Ceci is a right shot defenseman, and like I said when talking about Tucker Poolman, they are a hot commodity, so I think that played a big factor in him getting this contract. If he played on the left side, he definitely wouldn't have gotten this type of deal. But what makes this a little bit more confusing to me is, why wouldn't Edmonton have just held on to Ethan Bear, who is a young up-and-coming right shot defenseman, as opposed to dealing him and then going out and getting Cody Ceci. Now, for the final best signing we're going to talk about in this video, the Detroit Red Wings signing Pius Suter to a 2-year, $6.5 million contract, an annual cap hit of $3.25 million. Now, just to quickly clarify, I've been getting a lot of comments on recent videos saying I'm pronouncing his first name wrong. I say it Pius because that's the way I've heard it said on the Chicago Blackhawks broadcast throughout the entirety of the season, and on the Red Wings broadcast when they played the Hawks. So that's the way I'm going to continue to say it, and I'm really excited about this signing. If you have been subscribed to the channel even for just like a month now leading up to free agency, Pius Suter is like the one player that I really wanted the Red Wings to get, because he wasn't a player who was going to command a long-term deal or a ton of money, and as we saw, he didn't. He's also still relatively young, being 25 years old. This is a guy who I think could stick around with the Red Wings longer than just the 2-year deal that he signed, and also, more important than anything else, he plays the center position, and he's actually a good player. Detroit does not have many players who are good and that play center. He's going to fit right in on that second line, playing behind Dylan Larkin. Hopefully, him coming in is going to be able to take some of that pressure off of Larkin, and Larkin won't have to carry so much of the offensive load from the center position. Now, ideally, is Pius Suter a guy you would want as your second line center if you're trying to compete for a Stanley Cup? Probably not, but on the Red Wings, I think he's going to do perfectly fine in that role. It's been a gaping hole in the Red Wings lineup for the past couple of seasons, so by default, I feel like that makes this a great signing, and the fact that he's 25 years old and came in at a very fair price point makes it that much better. And now for the final signing we're going to talk about in this video, the Boston Bruins signing defenseman Derek Forbort to a 3-year, $9 million contract, an annual cap hit of $3 million. Now, I definitely don't view this contract to be near as bad as the Tucker Poolman one, because I actually think Derek Forbort can be a good bottom pairing defenseman on a good team, but usually you don't pay, $3 million across 3 seasons for a bottom pairing defenseman. So that's why I have it on here. Just from a pure value standpoint, I don't think it's great, but he does definitely add some depth to the Bruins blue line. He's a big physical defenseman, has put up pretty good defensive results throughout his career, so I feel like this one's kind of just meh. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those were, in my opinion, the best and the worst signings from free agency so far. And like I said at the start of the video, these are just my opinions. So if you disagree with anything I said, feel free to let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And given the fact that we are now kind of at that dead point in the off season, if you guys have any video suggestions at all, anything you want to see over the next couple of weeks or basically throughout the entire off season, you can let me know those down below in the comment section as well. There's obviously no guarantee that I'm going to use all of your guys' suggestions, but I'm always open to hearing your ideas.